Do not tell everyone your problems, not because your pain is shameful, not because you are weak for carrying it, not because a faithful woman must pretend she is never tired, never wounded, never afraid, but because your story is sacred, and sacred things are not meant to be handed to every careless hand that reaches for them. There are moments when the heart becomes so heavy that it wants to speak to anyone who will listen. You have carried the weight through the day. You have smiled when your chest felt tight. You have answered messages, completed responsibilities, shown up for others. And then at night, when the noise grows quiet, the truth rises. You are tired. You are hurting. You need somewhere to put the ache. That need is human. God does not shame you for needing comfort. He created us for relationship, for wise counsel, for prayerful companionship, for the kind of love that can sit beside pain without making it smaller or louder than it truly is. But not every listener is a safe place. Not every ear is compassionate. Not every person who asks, "What happened?" is asking with reverence. Some listen from curiosity. Some listen from comparison. Some listen because your pain makes them feel less alone, but not necessarily because they want to help you rise. Some listen only to gather pieces of your story they can later repeat, distort, judge, or use against you. And some are not cruel in a dramatic way. They are simply careless. They do not know how to hold what is tender without dropping it. Beloved, discernment is not distrust. It is wisdom. Jesus himself did not give the same access to everyone. He loved multitudes, but he withdrew to pray. He taught crowds, but he shared certain moments only with a few. He was compassion embodied, yet he did not entrust himself to every heart. If the Son of God moved with discernment, then you do not need to feel guilty for guarding the private rooms of your life. Your pain is not gossip. Your wounds are not entertainment. Your struggle is not a public performance. You do not owe the world a report on every battle you are fighting. You are allowed to heal quietly. You are allowed to pray through something before you speak about it. You are allowed to say, "I am not ready to share that." You are allowed to keep certain things between you, God, and the few people who have proven they can hold your truth with care. Ask yourself gently, am I sharing this because I trust this person or because I am desperate to feel seen? Has this person shown consistency, compassion, maturity, and respect? Do they listen to understand? Or do they listen to feel important knowing my pain? There is a difference between sharing and spilling. Sharing is intentional. It comes from wisdom. It chooses the person, the timing, and the purpose. Sharing can open the door to healing because it allows love, counsel, prayer, and support to enter. But spilling often comes from exhaustion. It is the heart reaching outward in panic, hoping someone, anyone will make the pain feel smaller. And sometimes, when you spill into the wrong place, you feel emptier afterward. Not because speaking was wrong, but because the place was not safe. There are people who want access to your vulnerability without responsibility for your healing. They want the intimacy of knowing your wound, but not the labor of walking with you toward wholeness. They may ask questions that feel caring, but after the conversation, you notice they did not actually help you stand. They only made you feel more exposed. Beloved, attention is not the same as care. Attention can be loud and temporary. Care is steady. Attention wants the story. Care wants your restoration. Attention asks for details. Care asks what you need. Attention disappears when the pain is no longer interesting. Care remains when the tears are gone and the work of healing becomes quiet, slow, and unglamorous. This is why some problems must first be prayed over, not announced. Some wounds need stillness before conversation. Some decisions need the presence of God before the opinions of people. Some battles are too tender to expose before they have been strengthened in secret. There is wisdom in going to the Lord first and saying, Father, help me understand what I am carrying. Show me who is safe. Show me what to speak, what to keep, and what to surrender. Silence, when led by fear, can become a prison. But silence, when led by wisdom, can become protection. There is a holy silence that does not deny pain. It guards it. It keeps the wound from being touched by unclean hands. It allows the soul to breathe before it must explain. It gives God space to speak louder than the noise of other people's opinions. And perhaps that is what your heart needs now, not isolation, but discernment. Not secrecy born from shame, but privacy born from self-respect. Not the lonely belief that you must carry everything alone, but the wise understanding that only certain people should be invited into the most vulnerable parts of your process. You are not weak because you need help. You are wise when you choose carefully where that help comes from. So hold your story gently. Bring it first to God. Let Him steady what people might mishandle. Let Him remind you that your identity is not your hardest season, your lowest moment, your most painful mistake, or your unanswered prayer. You are more than what you are going through. You are more than what people might label you if they saw you only in your breaking. Your story is sacred. Do not hand it to everyone. The original source says there is a difference between sharing and spilling, and that wisdom teaches you to pause before handing your pain to someone who may not know how to hold it. And beloved, that pause may save you from a kind of exposure that feels like relief for a moment, but becomes regret later. When the heart is tired, it wants immediate comfort. It wants someone to say, I understand. It wants a voice on the other end of the phone, a message that proves you are not alone, a face that softens when you finally admit how much you have been carrying. There is nothing wrong with wanting comfort. God made the human heart to be held in love. But pain can make us urgent, and urgency does not always choose wisely. Sometimes you speak because you are ready. Sometimes you speak because you are desperate. There is a difference. Readiness comes with clarity. It says, I know why I am sharing this. I know what kind of help I need. I know this person has proven trustworthy. Desperation says, I just need someone to hear me right now, even if they have never shown they can protect what I reveal. Readiness brings your story into a safe room. Desperation may leave your story in the street, where passing opinions can step on what is tender. Ask yourself gently, when I share my problems, am I seeking healing or only immediate relief? Am I choosing a safe person or simply the nearest person? Do I feel more peaceful after speaking or more exposed, more confused, more ashamed? These questions are not meant to silence you. They are meant to protect you. Because the right person will not make you feel smaller for having a struggle. The right person will not rush to turn your pain into advice before they have honored it with compassion. The right person will not collect your vulnerability and later bring it back as a weapon. The right person will not enjoy being important because they know your secret. They will feel responsible to handle your heart with prayer, humility, and care. There are people who ask questions because they love you. And there are people who ask questions because access makes them feel powerful. The difference may not always be obvious at first, but time reveals it. A safe person has consistency. They respect privacy. They do not need to be the center of your healing. They can listen without controlling. They can sit with your tears without turning them into gossip, performance, comparison, or judgment. That kind of person is rare. When God gives you such people, cherish them. Speak honestly with them. Let them pray with you. Let them remind you of truth when pain makes your vision blurry. Let them help carry what was never meant to crush you in isolation. But until someone has shown that kind of maturity, do not feel guilty for being careful. Even Jesus had Gethsemane companions. He did not invite the whole crowd into that garden. He brought a few near, and even then, he poured the deepest agony before the Father. That teaches us something holy. Human support matters, but God must remain the first place where the soul is poured out without fear of being mishandled. People may misunderstand. God will not. People may interrupt. God will not. People may forget what you said. God keeps every tear. There are problems that need counsel, yes. There are burdens that need community, yes. There are situations where silence can become dangerous. And in those cases, you must reach for safe help, wise help, professional help, spiritual help, protective help. But there are also moments when the first response should not be broadcasting. The first response should be stillness, prayer, journaling, breathing, asking, Lord, what am I feeling? What is the truth? Who is safe? What is the next wise step? Not everyone deserves the raw version of your pain. Some people may only be able to receive the edited version. Some may receive no version at all. That is not dishonesty. That is discernment. You are not required to make every person in your life an emotional witness to your private battles. Access to your struggle is not a right. It is a sacred trust. Beloved, your vulnerability is not cheap. Do not spend it in places where there is no reverence. One of the dangers of telling the wrong people your problems is that they may begin to define you by them. You tell them about one low season, and suddenly that is how they remember you. You share one mistake, and suddenly they see you through that one moment. You confess one fear, and they treat you as fragile forever. But you are more than the chapter you are currently surviving. You are more than the night you cried. You are more than the decision you regret. You are more than the wound still healing. God sees the whole story. He sees the beginning, the battle, the becoming, and the victory, still forming in secret. People may reduce you to a scene, but God does not. That is why you must not hand the pen of your identity to those who only know one paragraph of your pain. There is dignity in quiet healing. There is strength in not needing every struggle to be publicly understood. There is maturity in saying, I am walking through something, but I am choosing carefully who I speak to about it. There is wisdom in letting progress speak louder than explanation. This does not mean you become isolated. Isolation says no one can be trusted. Discernment says trust must be proven. Isolation hides from love. Discernment chooses where love is safe. Isolation is driven by fear. Discernment is guided by wisdom. And wisdom will teach you when to speak and when to be still. So before you share, pause, breathe, pray. Ask whether this conversation will bring clarity or confusion, healing or exposure, support or regret. Ask whether this person has earned the right to hear what is still tender. Ask whether you are speaking from peace or panic. Your story deserves more than an audience. It deserves sanctuary. The original source reminds us that some battles strengthen you in solitude because there are struggles that cannot be understood from the outside and lessons that cannot be learned through constant explanation. And beloved, that is a difficult truth for a heart that longs to be held. Because when pain comes, one of the first desires of the soul is to have someone witness it. Someone to say, I see you. I believe you. You are not carrying this alone. And sometimes God gives that. Sometimes he sends a friend, a counselor, a mentor, a sister in faith, a safe voice that helps you breathe again. But there are also seasons when the Lord allows a certain quiet around you, not because he has abandoned you, but because he is teaching you to find him beneath the noise. Solitude can feel frightening when you first enter it. You may mistake it for rejection. You may wonder why no one understands, why no one checks deeply enough, why the people you expected to notice your heaviness walk past it as though nothing is wrong. That kind of loneliness can ache, but not all loneliness is wasted. Some solitude becomes a sanctuary where God rebuilds the parts of you that were always reaching outward for stability. There, without an audience, you learn what is real. You learn the difference between appearing strong and becoming strong. Appearing strong performs for others. Becoming strong happens when no one is clapping, no one is affirming, no one is watching you hold yourself together except God. Appearing strong says, I hope they think I am fine. Becoming strong says, Lord, I am not fine, but I am still here, and I will meet this moment with you. That is a holy beginning. Ask yourself gently, what have I been performing because I was afraid to be alone with my own truth? Where have I depended on outside reassurance so much that I no longer trust the wisdom God is forming within me? What might solitude be trying to teach me that noise has kept me from hearing? When you stop telling everyone your problems, you begin to hear your inner life more clearly. At first, that may feel uncomfortable. The doubts are louder. The fears are more visible. The grief you kept outrunning finally catches up. But this is not failure. This is the beginning of honesty. Healing often starts when the distractions fall away and you sit before God without performance. In solitude, you learn to pray differently. Not polished prayers, not prayers designed to sound spiritual. Real prayers. God, I am tired. God, I feel forgotten. God, I do not know what to do. God, help me not run to unsafe places just because I feel lonely. These prayers may be simple, but they are powerful because they are true. And truth is where God meets you. Some battles must be fought quietly because outside voices would only cloud what God is trying to clarify. Advice can be helpful, but too much advice can make the soul dizzy. One person says stay, another says leave. One person says forgive, another says fight. One person says you are overreacting, another says you are not reacting enough. And soon your inner compass is buried beneath a crowd of opinions. But in solitude, God teaches you to listen. You begin to notice patterns in your thoughts. You begin to recognize where fear exaggerates, where shame accuses, where wisdom whispers. You begin to see which wounds make you reactive and which boundaries need to become stronger. You begin to understand that peace is not always found in having everyone's opinion, but in receiving God's instruction and walking steadily in it. Beloved, being alone does not mean being abandoned. There is a difference between isolation and sacred solitude. Isolation pulls you away from love and tells you no one can be trusted. Sacred solitude draws you nearer to God and teaches you which people can be trusted. Isolation is fear closing the door. Sacred solitude is wisdom letting the room become quiet enough for truth to speak, and in that quiet, your strength deepens. You learn that you can survive discomfort without immediately reaching for distraction. You learn that you can cry without falling apart forever. You learn that you can be unsure and still be held. You learn that you can make decisions without needing a crowd to approve them. You learn that God's presence is not always dramatic, but it is steady. There is a kind of confidence that only grows when no one is there to give it to you. It is not arrogance. It is groundedness. It is the quiet knowing that you have walked through darkness with God and did not disappear. It is the calm that comes after surviving what once terrified you. It is the inner witness that says, I have been carried before. I can trust him again. Some people may never know what you survived in silence. They may see your calm and not know the storms that taught it. They may see your smile and not know the nights you wrestled with fear. They may see your boundaries and not know how many times you once abandoned yourself. Let that be okay. Not every victory needs an audience to be real. Heaven saw. God saw the private tears. He saw the moment you almost called the wrong person but chose prayer instead. He saw when you wanted to spill everything but paused and protected your story. He saw when you sat in the quiet and let him hold what words could not explain. None of that was wasted. Solitude can also make you more compassionate. When you know what it is to carry something quietly, you become gentler with others. You stop assuming every smile means ease. You stop judging quickly. You listen with more reverence because you understand that every person may be fighting something unseen. That is how God turns private battles into public grace. So do not despise the quiet season. Do not assume that because few people know, nothing important is happening. Roots grow in darkness. Strength forms in hidden places. Wisdom matures where applause cannot reach. And when the time comes for you to speak, you will speak from a deeper place, not from panic, not from the need to be validated, but from a soul that has met God in solitude and found him faithful. Some battles are not meant to make you visible. They are meant to make you steady. The original source says growth often happens quietly, away from applause, away from witnesses, away from the places where approval is handed out freely. And beloved, that truth may feel almost disappointing in a world that teaches you to prove every change, post every victory, explain every season, and make your healing visible enough for others to validate. But the deepest work of God is often hidden before it is seen. A seed does not announce itself while it is breaking open beneath the soil. Roots do not ask for applause while they push through darkness. A woman does not always look transformed while transformation is happening. Sometimes, from the outside, her life looks still. She is not making dramatic declarations. She is not telling everyone what God is teaching her. She is not broadcasting every private battle, every boundary, every wound, every prayer. But inside, something holy is being rearranged. She is learning restraint where she once reacted. She is learning silence where she once overexplained. She is learning to pray before speaking, to pause before responding, to listen before trusting, to heal before sharing. She is learning that not every change needs an audience to be real. Ask yourself gently, have I been dismissing my growth because no one has noticed it? Have I been waiting for applause before I believe I am changing? What quiet work is God doing in me that I have been tempted to undervalue because it is not visible yet? Quiet growth can feel lonely because no one claps for the moments that matter most. No one may see when you choose not to send the angry message. No one may know when you sit with discomfort instead of running to an old habit. No one may recognize the courage it takes to keep your story private, to stop explaining, to forgive in secret, to rest instead of performing strength, to say no with a trembling voice, to trust God when you have no evidence except His faithfulness. But heaven sees. God sees the small obediences that no one else records. He sees when you choose peace over proving a point. He sees when you protect your healing from people who would not understand it. He sees when you choose quiet discipline over public approval. He sees the hidden tears, the unspoken prayers, the invisible decisions that are slowly making you whole. Beloved, recognition was never the purpose. Peace was, alignment was. Becoming someone who can stand before God with an honest heart was the purpose. The world often celebrates loud change, sudden transformation, dramatic reinvention, visible success, powerful declarations, and sometimes there is beauty in that. But not every loud change has roots. Some changes are only emotional moments that fade when pressure returns. Quiet growth, however, sinks deeper. It changes the way you think before it changes what people see. It changes your responses before it changes your circumstances. It teaches you to become steady, not just impressive, and steadiness is a gift. A steady woman does not need to tell everyone what she is overcoming. Her calm begins to speak. Her boundaries begin to speak. Her peace begins to speak. Her refusal to be pulled into old chaos begins to speak. People may not know the whole story, but they will sense that something in her has changed. She no longer rushes to defend herself. She no longer begs to be understood. She no longer gives her sacred things to unsafe hands. She carries herself differently because God has been strengthening her privately. That kind of growth cannot be faked for long. It is formed in hidden places. There are lessons God may teach you quietly because public attention would interfere with the process. Some dreams are too tender to be exposed too early. Some wounds are too fresh to be discussed with people who have not earned trust. Some decisions need time and prayer before they are spoken out loud. Some healing must be protected until it is strong enough to stand. This is not secrecy from shame. This is wisdom from God. Mary carried things in her heart before the world understood them. David was formed in fields before he stood before giants. Joseph grew in hidden prisons before he stepped into public purpose. Jesus himself lived decades in ordinary obscurity before his public ministry began. Hidden does not mean forgotten. Quiet does not mean unimportant. Unseen does not mean unused. God often develops what he plans to reveal. So do not rush your becoming just because others cannot see it yet. Do not measure your healing by how quickly people notice. Do not expose every tender place just to prove something is happening. Roots need darkness. Character needs process. Wisdom needs stillness. Healing needs privacy. And yes, there will be days when you question whether you are growing at all. You may still feel triggered. You may still over-explain sometimes. You may still want validation. You may still feel the old urge to tell the wrong people your problems because loneliness wants an audience. Do not let those moments convince you that nothing is changing. Growth is not proven by never struggling again. Growth is often proven by how quickly you return to truth. You return to prayer. You return to peace. You return to the boundary. You return to the quiet place where God reminds you who you are. That return is growth. Beloved, quiet growth also protects you from comparison. When you stop performing your progress, you stop measuring it against someone else's timeline. You begin to understand that God is not working in every woman the same way, at the same pace, under the same pressure, for the same assignment. Your path does not need to look impressive to be meaningful. Your healing does not need to be public to be powerful. One day, what God formed in secret will be visible without you needing to announce it. People will notice your steadiness, your gentleness, your discernment, your refusal to be dragged into old patterns. They may not know how much private surrender produced that peace. They may not know how many nights you cried your way back to God. They may not know what silence cost you, but you will know, and God will know. Let that be enough while the roots are still growing. The original source says peace increases when explanations decrease because your soul was never meant to live on trial. And beloved, that sentence touches a deep wound in many women, the wound of always feeling required to prove why you feel what you feel, why you need what you need, why you left, why you stayed, why you changed, why you became quiet, why your boundaries are different now. For years, you may have lived as though your life needed a defense attorney. Every decision came with a paragraph. Every no came with an apology. Every boundary came wrapped in softness so no one would feel uncomfortable. You explained your tiredness. You explained your pain. You explained your silence. You explained why you could not keep pouring from an empty place. And still, some people were not satisfied. Because some people are not asking for understanding. They're asking for access. That is why over-explaining becomes so exhausting. You think you are building a bridge, but often you are entering a courtroom. You say, "This is what hurt me." And suddenly you are cross-examined. You say, "I need space." And suddenly you must prove the space is reasonable. You say, "I cannot do that anymore." And suddenly your kindness, your loyalty, your faith, and your character are placed under inspection. Beloved, Peace begins when you realize you do not have to keep defending the wisdom God gave you. There is a difference between healthy communication and anxious justification. Healthy communication builds understanding with people who respect you. Anxious justification begs for permission from people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Healthy communication is clear and honest. Anxious justification is long, fearful, and full of self-erasure. Healthy communication says, "This is what I need." Anxious justification says, "This is what I need. And please let me explain it in 10 different ways so you will not be upset with me." Ask yourself gently, where have I been explaining myself because I am afraid of being disliked? Where have I turned my boundaries into essays because I did not trust that a simple no could be enough? Whose approval have I been trying to purchase with exhaustion? Jesus teaches us a quiet kind of strength. He did not answer every accusation. He did not chase every misunderstanding. He did not perform innocence for people whose hearts were already hardened. There were times he spoke with power, and there were times he remained silent. His silence was not weakness. It was authority under control. It was the peace of one who knew his identity did not depend on human approval. And in him, beloved, you are invited into that same peace. You do not need to explain every private decision to people who have not earned access to your process. You do not need to reopen wounds so someone else can decide whether your pain was valid. You do not need to tell the entire story every time someone questions the boundary that was born from it. Some things happen between you and God. Some lessons cost you too much to be reduced into a conversation for someone's comfort. Your no can be complete. Your silence can be honest. Your boundary can be loving. This does not mean becoming cold, harsh, or unreachable. It means becoming whole enough to stop negotiating your peace. You can be kind without being available. You can be gracious without giving explanations that drain your spirit. You can love people and still refuse to hand them a map to every room inside you. Some people will call that distance. Let them. Some will say you have changed. Let them. Some will accuse you of being difficult because you no longer make yourself easy to use. Let them. Growth often disappoints the people who benefited from your lack of boundaries. Peace may look rude to those who were accustomed to your overextension, but you are not required to remain exhausted so others can call you loving. When explanations decrease, you begin to hear yourself again. The mind becomes quieter. You stop rehearsing conversations that may never happen. You stop preparing arguments to justify decisions you already know are wise. You stop carrying other people's reactions before they even respond. That mental space becomes holy ground. God can speak there. Peace can settle there. Wisdom can rise there. Overexplaining often comes from fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear of being misunderstood, fear of being seen as selfish. But beloved, being misunderstood is not always a failure. Sometimes it is the cost of living, honestly. Some people cannot understand your growth because your growth interrupts the version of you they preferred. Some people cannot understand your boundary because your boundary removes their convenience. Some people cannot understand your peace because they were more comfortable when you were always explaining yourself into exhaustion. You cannot make everyone see you clearly. You can only live truthfully before God, and that must become enough. There will still be moments when explanation is necessary. Love does not refuse all communication. Wisdom does not use silence as punishment. Healthy relationships need honesty, clarity, and sometimes deep conversation. But there is a holy difference between explaining because love is building a bridge and explaining because fear is begging not to be abandoned. Learn the difference. With safe people, words bring connection. With unsafe people, words become ammunition. With safe people, explanation is received with humility. With unsafe people, explanation becomes an invitation to argue, correct, dismiss, or control. Discernment teaches you where your words will bear fruit and where they will only be wasted. Beloved, your peace is too precious to spend on convincing people who profit from your confusion. So speak simply. Say what is true. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. Let your life become steady enough that you no longer need to narrate every step. Let your actions explain what your words no longer need to defend. Let God be the witness when people refuse to understand. You are allowed to be clear without being cruel. You are allowed to be quiet without being dishonest. You are allowed to protect your healing without giving a public statement. You are allowed to stop living as though every person has the right to audit your heart. Peace will not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it comes when you choose one sentence instead of 5. Sometimes it comes when you do not answer the question meant to trap you. Sometimes it comes when you let someone misunderstand you and still keep walking. Sometimes it comes when you finally believe that your life does not need unanimous approval to be valid. Beloved, God did not create your soul to live on trial. Step out of the courtroom and return to peace. The original source reminds us that not everyone needs access to your struggles, and that some people earn the privilege of hearing your pain through consistency, compassion, and care. And beloved, this is where discernment becomes not only wisdom, but protection for the soul. Because the goal is not to become silent forever. The goal is to become selective. There is a silence that comes from shame, and it keeps you trapped. There is a silence that comes from fear, and it makes you believe no one can ever be trusted. But there is also a silence that comes from maturity, a holy restraint that says, I will not hand my wounds to someone who has not shown the tenderness required to hold them. That kind of silence does not isolate you from love. It prepares you to recognize real love when it appears. Not everyone who is near you is safe for you. Not everyone who knows your name knows how to honor your heart. Some people can laugh with you, work with you, worship beside you, even call you friend, and still not have the emotional maturity to carry the private weight of your life. That does not always make them evil. It simply means they have not been assigned that place of trust. And wisdom knows the difference. Ask yourself gently, who leaves me feeling more grounded after I speak? Who helps me see God more clearly instead of making me feel more confused? Who protects what I share instead of turning it into conversation? Who loves me enough to tell the truth, but does so without crushing my spirit? Safe people do not always say what you want to hear. That is important. A safe person is not someone who agrees with every emotion. Sometimes the safest person is the one who can say, I understand why you feel this, but let us pray before you respond. Sometimes care looks like comfort. Sometimes care looks like correction wrapped in love. But unsafe people use correction to feel superior. Safe people use truth to help you heal. Unsafe people make you feel exposed. Safe people make you feel seen. Unsafe people collect details. Safe people carry burdens. Unsafe people enjoy being needed. Safe people want you to become whole. Unsafe people remind you of your lowest season when you begin to rise. Safe people rejoice when your strength returns. Beloved, learn to watch fruit, not words. Many people can speak kindly in a moment. Fewer people can remain faithful over time. Many people can say, "You can trust me." Fewer people prove it through discretion, patience, prayer, and consistency. Many people can comfort you when your pain is fresh. Fewer people can walk with you when healing becomes slow, repetitive, and inconvenient. Time reveals who is safe. This is why you do not need to rush intimacy. You do not need to tell everything quickly to prove closeness. You do not need to open the deepest rooms of your heart because someone gave you a few moments of attention. True trust grows slowly. It is built through repeated evidence. It is built when someone respects your no, keeps your confidence, listens without control, and does not punish you for needing time. There is freedom in understanding that access can be gradual. You can share a little and see how it is handled. You can offer a small truth and observe whether it is protected. You can notice whether someone responds with humility or hunger for more details. You can test the soil before planting something precious there. Even Jesus taught us not to cast pearls before what will trample them. That does not mean people are worthless. It means pearls are precious, and precious things require discernment. Your deepest pain, your private prayers, your fragile hopes, your unfinished healing, these are pearls. They should not be thrown into places where they will be stepped on, mocked, misunderstood, or used. God does not ask you to be careless with what He is healing. There are also moments when you must choose trained help, not just familiar help. Some burdens require more than a friend's listening ear. Some wounds need pastoral counsel, therapy, mentorship, or professional support. That is not weakness. That is wisdom. A broken bone needs proper care. A wounded heart may also need skilled, prayerful, mature care. Do not let pride, fear, or shame keep you from receiving help that is safe and necessary. But even then, choose carefully. Pray for discernment. Look for humility, wisdom, confidentiality, and fruit. Look for people who do not make themselves the hero of your healing, but help you return to God, to truth, to peace, and to your own God-given strength. Beloved, you are not meant to carry everything alone, but you are also not meant to carry everything publicly. There's a narrow, holy road between isolation and exposure. On that road, you bring your heart first to God. Then you allow Him to show you the few trusted places where your burden can be shared without being mishandled. This is not fear. This is stewardship. You are stewarding your story. You are stewarding your energy. You are stewarding your peace. You are stewarding the woman God is rebuilding. Some people will be offended when you stop telling them everything. Let them be offended. Their offense may reveal that they valued access more than they valued your healing. Some will say, "You have changed." Maybe you have. Maybe you finally learned that openness without discernment was costing you too much. Maybe you finally realized that being available to everyone meant being absent from yourself. Growth often looks like distance to people who benefited from your lack of boundaries. But the right people will not punish your wisdom. They will respect it. They will not demand every detail. They will not pressure you to speak before you are ready. They will not make your privacy feel like betrayal. They will understand that trust is sacred, and they will treat your heart accordingly. Those are the people worth keeping close. So do not confuse loneliness with the absence of love. Sometimes God is clearing the noise so you can recognize the voices that carry His tenderness. Sometimes He is teaching you to stop begging unsafe people to become safe. Sometimes He is showing you that a smaller circle can hold more peace than a crowded room full of careless ears. Beloved, choose your listeners the way you would choose shelter in a storm. Not every roof will hold. Not every room is warm, but God will lead you to places where your story can breathe without fear. The original source says to let your progress speak louder than your pain, and to let your healing become evident in your calm, your focus, and your grace under pressure. And beloved, this is one of the most beautiful signs that God is rebuilding a woman from the inside. She no longer needs to announce every wound in order to prove she has survived it. There was a time when you may have needed people to know how badly you were hurt, not because you wanted attention, but because the pain felt invisible. You wanted someone to understand why you changed, why you were tired, why you were quieter, why you could not keep showing up the same way. You wanted someone to say, "Now I understand. Now your distance makes sense. Now your boundary is valid." But healing begins to mature when you no longer need everyone to understand the process in order to honor the progress. Some victories are too sacred to explain repeatedly. Some deliverance is too costly to turn into conversation for people who only want details, not wisdom. Some healing is better shown through the way you live now than retold through the pain that almost broke you. There comes a moment when you stop rehearsing the wound and start walking in the restoration. That does not mean you deny what happened. It means what happened is no longer the loudest voice in your life. Ask yourself gently, am I still trying to make people understand my pain because I have not fully believed my own healing is valid? Am I giving more energy to explaining what hurt me than to becoming whole? What would change if I let my peace speak instead of my pain? There is a quiet authority in a woman who has stopped arguing with people about her worth. She does not need to prove she was mistreated. She knows. God knows. The truth does not become false because someone refuses to honor it. She does not need to convince people that her boundary is necessary. She remembers what it cost her to live without one. She does not need to make everyone approve of her healing. She has learned that some people only supported the version of her they could benefit from. So she walks differently, not arrogantly, not coldly, not as though she is above others, but with a steadiness that comes from having survived private storms with God. Her calm is not weakness, it is discipline. Her silence is not emptiness, it is discernment. Her peace is not denial, it is the fruit of surrender. Beloved, when God heals you, He does not always make you louder. Sometimes He makes you steadier. Sometimes He teaches you to speak less because your life is becoming clearer. Sometimes He teaches you to stop dragging your pain into every room because He is teaching you that you are more than what injured you. People may notice before they understand. They may say, "You seem different." They may wonder why you no longer react the same way. They may feel confused when old manipulation no longer moves you, when old guilt no longer controls you, when old conversations no longer pull you into defense. Let them wonder. Growth does not require a press release. Your consistency will explain more than your words ever could. When you keep choosing peace, peace speaks. When you keep honoring your boundaries, boundaries speak. When you keep returning to prayer instead of panic, faith speaks. When you stop telling unsafe people your problems and start bringing your burdens to God first, wisdom speaks. When you no longer need to expose every bruise to prove you were wounded, dignity speaks. And dignity has a language all its own. This is not easy. There will be moments when you want to tell the whole story. You may want to correct the narrative, defend your motives, expose what really happened, make people see the side they ignored. And there are times when truth must be spoken, especially where harm, accountability, or justice is involved. Silence should never be used to protect abuse, deception, or danger. But there are also moments when the desire to explain is not wisdom. It is pain asking for validation from people who were never safe enough to give it. In those moments, pause, breathe, ask God, is this mine to say, or is this mine to surrender? Not every accusation needs your answer. Not every misunderstanding needs your energy. Not every person deserves access to the details. God is still healing. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is keep becoming, keep praying, keep healing, keep building a life that is not centered around who hurt you. Keep letting God restore your laughter, your softness, your courage, your clarity. Keep showing up with grace. Keep choosing wisdom. Keep allowing your private obedience to create public steadiness. One day, you may realize that you are no longer telling the story the same way. Not because it did not matter, but because it no longer owns you. The wound may still be part of your testimony, but it is not your identity. The pain may have shaped you, but it does not name you. The battle may have taught you, but it does not get to govern your future. Beloved, your life is not a monument to what went wrong. It is a witness to what God can restore. Let people see the fruit. Let them see the peace. Let them see the woman who no longer spills her soul into unsafe places. Let them see the strength that was formed in solitude, the wisdom that grew in silence, the joy that returned without needing permission. And if they never understand the darkness you walked through to find that light, let that be okay. God understood every step. The original source closes with a powerful reminder that peace grows when you stop giving the world access to every thought, every wound, every motive, and every private battle. And beloved, this is where the message must finally rest. You do not owe everyone the full story of what you are surviving. You are allowed to be private without being dishonest. You are allowed to be quiet without being cold. You are allowed to protect your heart without becoming bitter. You are allowed to carry certain things with God before you ever speak them to people. For too long, many women have lived as though silence is suspicious and explanation is required. They have explained why they are tired, explained why they need space, explained why they stopped calling, explained why they changed, explained why they no longer accept what once wounded them, explained pain to people who only wanted permission to debate it. But your soul was not created to live on trial. There comes a holy moment when God teaches you that you can be clear without being exhaustive, You can say no without writing an essay. You can choose peace without defending it. You can walk away without turning your departure into a courtroom statement. You can let people misunderstand you and still remain whole. That kind of freedom is not easy at first. At first, silence may feel like swallowing fire. You may want to correct every version of the story. You may want to prove that you had reasons. You may want to show every scar so people will finally understand why you protect yourself now. But, beloved, the people who require you to bleed before they believe you are hurt are not safe judges of your healing. God already knows. He knows what happened. He knows what it cost you. He knows the prayers you whispered when no one answered. He knows the strength it took to stay gentle when life gave you reasons to harden. He knows the battles you fought in silence, the tears you wiped before anyone entered the room, the moments when you almost gave your story to the wrong person but chose wisdom instead. And because God knows, you do not have to live desperate to be understood by everyone else. Ask yourself gently, what part of my peace have I been sacrificing to prove my pain was real? Whose understanding have I been chasing at the cost of my own calm? What would change if I trusted God to be my witness? There are seasons when speaking is necessary. Truth matters. Safety matters. Wise counsel matters. If you are in danger, being harmed, manipulated, threatened, or spiritually crushed, silence is not wisdom. You must reach for safe help. God does not call you to suffer in secrecy while harm continues. But there is a difference between seeking help from safe places and scattering your pain into careless places. Wisdom knows the difference. It knows when to speak and when to be still. It knows when silence is fear and when silence is protection. It knows when explanation builds connection and when explanation drains the soul. It knows that some people deserve honesty, some deserve simplicity, and some deserve distance. Beloved, not everyone needs the raw version of you. Some people only need the boundary. Some only need the calm answer. Some only need to see the fruit of what God is doing, not the full process that produced it. Your healing does not become less valid because it happened privately. Your strength does not become less real because it was formed without applause. In fact, the strength formed in hidden places often lasts the longest. A woman who has learned to bring her pain to God first walks differently. She is not easily pulled into panic. She is not quick to hand her heart to anyone who sounds interested. She is not addicted to being understood by people who have never honored her truth. She listens more carefully. She speaks more intentionally. She guards her peace without apology. Her silence is not emptiness. It is stewardship. She is stewarding her story, stewarding her energy, stewarding her calling, stewarding the tender work God is doing in her soul. And over time, her life begins to testify without constant explanation. Her calm speaks. Her boundaries speak. Her wisdom speaks. Her refusal to keep returning to old chaos speaks. Her ability to smile without performing, rest without guilt, heal without broadcasting, and grow without needing applause. All of it speaks. Let your progress speak louder than your pain. Let your peace speak louder than your explanations. Let your life become evidence that God can heal a woman quietly and still heal her completely. There will still be lonely days. Days when you wish someone understood without needing details. Days when the burden feels heavy and silence feels too hard. On those days, do not isolate in pride. Bring your heart to God. Choose one safe soul if you need one. Write the prayer. Take the walk. Cry honestly. Rest deeply. Ask for help wisely. But do not return to the old pattern of giving sacred pieces of yourself to people who have not earned the right to hold them. You are not being difficult. You are becoming discerning. You are not being distant. You are becoming whole. You are not hiding your life. You are protecting what God is healing. And one day, you may look back and realize that the season you thought was lonely was actually forming you. It taught you how to listen inwardly. It taught you how to trust God more deeply. It taught you how to stop explaining yourself into exhaustion. It taught you how to tell the difference between attention and care. It taught you that peace is not found in being known by everyone, but in being fully known by God and faithfully guarded by wisdom. Beloved, your story is sacred. Share it with reverence. Speak when God gives you peace. Be silent when wisdom asks for protection. Choose safe people. Choose prayer before panic. Choose clarity over explanation. Choose growth over performance. Choose the quiet strength of a soul that no longer needs the world's approval to believe its own worth. You do not have to tell everyone your problems. You have to bring them to the one who can heal them. And when he leads you to speak, speak from peace, not from desperation, not from fear, not from the need to prove you are strong, but from the quiet confidence of a woman who knows her story is held, her spirit is guarded, and her life is still being beautifully restored by God.